The 12-team college football playoff is going to kick off with an in-state battle that we don't see very often, but we're going to enjoy it while it's here. I'm Colin Mashingle. If you've never been here before, this is a channel that I'm trying to get kickstarted. So if you guys do like the content you hear after this introduction, make sure you drop a follow. It will help improve the product. The more people that end up supporting the channel. So would really appreciate it if you subscribe. I say follow because I'm very much on TikTok and I'm very active talking on there. You could check it out. That's why I said follow just out of habit instead of subscribe. But subscribe here. And if you do nothing else, just like the video. It doesn't take any money, any bother, nothing. I'm not even going to pop up all the time for you if you just like the video. So certainly like this if you like the video. Well, Indiana looks at Notre Dame like the arrogant Catholic school of the northern part of the state that thinks that they're better than everybody else. But meanwhile, Notre Dame, in relation to Indiana, just believes that they're better than Indiana. They are the prime school in the state of Indiana, and they are the prestigious one that all of the kids growing up want to go to, and they take all the elites, the elite athletes, the elite students. This is going to be a battle. It is 100% going to be a battle to where Indiana is going to feel like the rejected, forgotten ones. And you got to keep in mind where Indiana comes from going into this game. They were the Cinderella story of the college football season for the first 12 weeks. And then they get blown out on the road against Ohio State, or ran off the field is a better term for that game. And everybody kind of jumps off their bandwagon. They go try to find a wagon to hitch on to. The media lands on Arizona State and Kenny Dillingham, and that's deserved for sure. But Indiana is still the Cinderella story of this college football season. The turnaround that Curt Cignetti has had and the position that they have the Hoosiers in, that is something that is very unique and not very common within the sport of college football. We have seen Arizona State at the heights of all heights. This is, with this Indiana team, very, very similar to that Todd Reesing 2007 Kansas team, except now there's a 12-team playoff. Meanwhile, Notre Dame on the other side, you could say there's a little bit of an underdog aspect to them too. They start the season with a big win against Texas A&M on the road, but they bounce off of that and lose to Northern Illinois, the Huskies, who finished, 6-6 in the MAC, I believe is the correct record that they finished with. Correct me if I'm wrong. They might have been 7-5. But Notre Dame lost an inexplicable game, not to a Northern Illinois team that even won the MAC or contended for a playoff spot, but was very middle of the road in the Mid-American Conference. And they bounced back. They improved week by week, got better and better to the point where the last time we saw them, they had an offensive explosion, especially on the ground, outscoring the USC Trojans and certainly forcing a couple of big turnovers down the stretch. And that's what this Notre Dame defense does. Though they've been without Benjamin Morrison for the latter part of the year, you see guys in that back end being able to make plays on the ball. But a lot of that is created from the pressure that the front seven puts on opposing teams. They're very, very good and stout against the run, but they're also very good at getting pressure at the quarterback, towards the quarterback. And at the end of the day, when Notre Dame is playing defense, Al Golden's drawing it up so that with an aggressive nature, so that way their players can make plays. Guys like Xavier Watts, who have been in the program for a very, very long time. And on the offensive side of the ball, though Riley Leonard is not the most efficient passer, you have seen guys out wide be able to step up, and you've seen that offensive line grow up right before your eyes. If you saw them against Texas A&M, even in a win, a big win on the road, week one, you saw the youth within their offensive line take form very early on in that ball game. They are not youthful anymore. They've had a whole season to be able to correct themselves. I think that's the biggest reason why Notre Dame has improved so much. The emergence of that offensive line and running back Jeremiah Love has been an absolute amazing indicator of what Notre Dame has been able to improve on, but also the wide receivers, the guys like Bo Collins and Elijah Mitchell have been able to step up for Notre Dame. Jordan Faison making big plays here and there as well. Jaden Greathouse. They turned a weakness that was that wide receiver room into somewhat of a strength later on in the year. So the big question for Notre Dame going into this college football playoff is, can Riley Leonard be able to be effective and accurate throwing the football to those guys, getting that ball spread out to the wide receivers, and of course, don't forget the tight end Mitchell Evans. They're going to be going up against the defense in Indiana. When you look at Weston and Kamara in the middle, they're going to be stout against the run. They have been stout against everybody against the run, whether it was Michigan, Ohio State, Nebraska, it doesn't matter. They have done a very, very good job. And this is probably going to be Notre Dame's biggest challenge up front on the defensive side of the ball since that Texas A&M defensive line that they faced in week 1. They have not seen a defensive line this good since week 1, and that's crazy to say about Indiana, but that's just the truth in the reality that we sit in with Notre Dame's schedule down the stretch. They have all lined up with very good matchups. And when Indiana has the football, they do have to exploit that aggressiveness. If you're going to catch Notre Dame in a little bit of man coverage, and they do not play, it might be zone coverage that Notre Dame plays in, but it is not a soft zone. It is a very aggressive zone. But when they get the opportunity to play man-to-man against Notre Dame, they discover man-to-man using motion and shifts and all this stuff. Omar Cooper and Elijah Surratt have been amazing with the back shoulder pass all year long, and they didn't really utilize it against Ohio State. I don't think they really had the timing right against Ohio State because they brought the pressure. And you know Al Golden's going to bring the pressure. They got to respond to that pressure way better than they did against Ohio State, and I truly think they will. I think they will. But if you want to complain about the environment, ticket sales are crazy, and I think a big part of the reason why ticket sales are crazy is because of the CFP control over the ticket sales and all this stuff in the home environments. I think there will be a decent amount of Indiana faithful at this game. So I don't think it's going to be as big a road test as that Ohio State game was earlier this year. But for Indiana, they're still going to be facing a lot of noise, particularly when they're on offense and third down situations. And they're going to have to communicate a whole lot better than they did against Ohio State to be able to protect the quarterback so he can get the ball out of his hands. Curtis Rourke did not throw for many yards against Ohio State, but it wasn't because Curtis Rourke was playing bad. It's because they were all just completely out of whack and out of sync. They got to be in sync. They got to be on the same page. They have better been using this 3 weeks because it's regardless of opponent, right, to fix this stuff. They have better use these 3 weeks to be able to fix that communication issue that they had against Ohio State, which was a first-time issue on the road in Columbus. I think that Indiana matches up pretty well with Notre Dame to keep this pretty low scoring and let their offense be able to make some plays. You're going to get plays out of Elijah Surratt. You're going to get plays out of the running backs there, headlined by Justice Ellison. I'm pretty confident in that. And Tyson Lawton's a really good player too when Ellison's not in the game. Can Curtis Rourke keep the ball out of the hands of that ball-hawking secondary? That's the first part for Indiana to be able to win this game. And can their defensive line do what they've done all year and contain a run game that is as efficient the last few weeks as anybody in America? Because if anybody can make Notre Dame two-dimensional, reliant on the pass game to open up the run game this year in the college football playoff, that's going to be a recipe to beat Notre Dame. And that is going to be a recipe to stop their offense, at least to our knowledge now. If Riley Leonard goes out and shows you that he can throw the football down the field effectively and be a threat with his arm, then hey, hats off to him. You beat us that day. That's all you can say if you take away the run game or limit the run game and dare Riley Leonard to beat you with your arm, and he does. But at the end of the day, you're not going to bet on that because you have not seen that to this point. I think Indiana keeps that close with this being considered. But I just don't think Indiana is going to be able to establish the run game as well as they have in some games, including that Ohio State game. And I don't think that they're going to be able to contain the Notre Dame rushing attack long enough to be able to hold them off and give their offense time. I think this is a very, very close game that Notre Dame pulls away in the fourth quarter. I'm going with Notre Dame to win this ball game 27-13 at home. Like I said, I think it's a touchdown game until about 2 minutes left, though. I think it's a low scoring, drag down. There might be some snow in the air. It's certainly going to be cold. It's going to be one of the uglier games that these two teams have been a part of. And I think that Notre Dame is more comfortable in that situation than Indiana. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you've made it this far, make sure you like that video. I will see you guys in the next one. It'll be more college football playoff previews. See you then.